Bruchim Habayim. We're continuing on Mishna Berura, studying Shulchan Aruch, Siman Kuf Lamed Hey of Orach Chaim, the halachot of Kriyat HaTorah, and Yud Zayin Amud Aleph of the regular prints of Mishna Berura, and we are continuing on Seif Hey. Im HaSefer Torah Patuach VaKohen Koreh Shema. What do you do if the Kohen is not available? He's saying Shema. You open the Sefer Torah, you took the Sefer Torah out, and you say, Kohen, where's the Kohen? He's saying Shema. What do? Do you wait for him? Or do you call him up and wait for him? Or do you just pass it to a Yisrael? So it says the Shulchan Aruch, Eno Rashai Lafsik. You're not, the Kohen is not allowed to stop his Shema and go up to say the Birkat HaTorah, and therefore Korim Yisrael Bimkomo. We call somebody else in his stead. This is the Tshuvat Rashba that's brought in Bet Yosef, says this psak. V'chen beta'anit Shachar Pesach v'Sukkot, says the Ramah, if you have a ta'anit of Bahav and you're doing Vayechal Moshe in the mincha of the ta'anit, and you want to call the Kohen up, but the Kohen is not fasting, so you don't call the Kohen up. You ask him l'chatchila to go out of the Bet Knesset, and you give it to a Yisrael. Korin the Yisrael v'tov she'elecha Kohen mi Bet Knesset. Says the Mishnah Berura, Im HaSefer Torah Patuach v'hu adin im adayin lo hotziu Sefer Torah. Same thing is if you haven't even taken the Sefer Torah out, but the Kohen, for instance, came late a little bit. So do you wait a few moments to make sure that he catches up, and now you could do it properly with his participation, or do you not wait for him? Gamken en mamtinin, says the Mishnah Berura, we do not wait for him from taking out the Sefer Torah, and we just give it to Israel, because waiting for him would be tircha de tzibura, would be bothering the tzibur. Now, the difference between these two cases is, if you have not taken the Sefer Torah out, and everyone wants to wait for this Kohen. Imagine the Kohen is the Gadol Ador. You want to wait for him to give him the bracha. Fine, you're allowed to do that. But if you took out the Sefer Torah already, is waiting in the Tzibur, that's already a disrespect to the Sefer Torah. Then in that case, you should not be waiting for anybody, and you should just call Israel and continue with the process of the Tefillah. Va'afilu le'da'ar rishona b'siman samech vav shemafsik. There in halachot of Kriyat Shema in Siman Samech Vav, there was a shita that holds that the Kohen would stop actually if they called him. So says the Mishnah Berura, that's only if they called him. If they already said Yamod Reuben ben Yaakov Kohen, so then already they called his name. He should go up, because if he doesn't, it will be maybe a cause for rinun, for people speaking and slandering him, that maybe his kehuna is questionable, and so on. So therefore, that's the reason, and also additionally for the kavod of the Torah, and therefore there would be different. But if you have a kohen that they called him to go up to the Torah in the middle of the Kriyat Shema or Birkot Kriyat Shema, we discussed already the details of if it's between the prakim, if it's be'emtza perik, and so on and so forth, which again refer back to Siman Samech Vav for that. Aval lechatchila en likroto, but you should not be calling him until you make sure that he's available. And if he's not available, do not call him. Don't get him into this question. Just ask him to nicely leave the shul and stand out for a minute until you call a Yisrael in his stead. So it says the Mishnah Berura. Also, we don't concern ourselves with the pegam of Kohen. We're not concerned that if you don't call him, that people are going to think that people see that he's davening. Everyone says that he's saying Shema, he's kissing it. You see, he's busy with davening, so therefore we're not really concerned with that chashash either. And the poskim, they agree that this is not just limited to a kohen that's saying Shema, but rather hu adin k'she'osek bebrachot shel kriyat Shema as well. Same thing is with someone that's doing kriyat Shema, they should not be stopping to go up to say Birkat Kohanim, to say Birkat Kohen of Sefer Torah, v'choshken kshu osek bepsukei de zimra, and says, sorry, I skipped the line. V'ayin lein b'siman samech vav, she'ichranu diyesh la'akel likrot l'chatechila kshu omed ben haprakim. So the psak of the Mishnah Berura, as we mentioned before, is that if it's ben haprakim, he finished one perek, one bracha of Kriyat Shema, he hasn't started the second one. In that case, you could call him to the Torah. Ve'en sham kohen acher. That's in a case that there is no other kohen to go up to say the bracha. You could call him up if he is be'emsa perek. And of course, if you remember, we mentioned back then that the Kaf HaChaim seems to disagree with that you should not be calling him to go up even be'emsa perek, and even if you don't have another kohen, just ask him to leave the shul, and that would be the best. That would be most probably the minhag of the Sfaradim. And says the Mishnah Berura, choshken kshu osek bepesukei de zimra, and goes without saying that if he's in the middle of pesukei de zimra, he hasn't even started Birkat Kriyat Shema, then you could call him up, he could pause, go up, say bracha, and come back down. And that one, even the Kaf HaChaim agrees, even for the Sfaradim, that if he is doing pesukei de zimra, you could call him up, even lechatchila, because in a case, of course, that there is no other kohen. If you have other kohanim, that's a different story. So the Ramah said that the best is in this scenario that you can't call him up because he's saying Shema. Ask him to leave the shul for momentarily until the Yisrael goes up in his stead. So Hainu de Medina afilu lo yatsa. Even if he doesn't go out, halachically speaking, you still could call the Yisrael in his place because he cannot get an aliyah right now. He's in the middle of Shema. So it doesn't matter really. You could call someone else with him sitting in the middle of the shul, no problem. But it is better to ask him to step out for a moment. This way, we will cover all our bases, that no one is going to speak about him, and so on. Because now everyone knows that he's not fasting, this Kohen. Now everyone knows that he's in the middle of Shema necessarily. It's better to tell him to go out, especially by the case of the Ramah, which is in Ta'anit, that the Kohen is not fasting, and you're asking him to not be the Kohen that gets the bracha because he's not fasting. Now everyone knows that he's not fasting, so therefore you ask him to leave. That way would be the best remedy for the problem. Of course, if you have another Kohen that is fasting, so that solves the problem a much easier way. Then he doesn't need to go out of the Bet Knesset. On all accounts, we just give the aliyah to those Kohanim or Kohen that is fasting. Now, on that end, the Kaf HaChaim explains that we're talking with Ta'anit Bahav only, as the Ramah himself writes. It's like, Ta'anit after Sukkot, after Pesach. There are different reasons for why the minhag of the Ashkenazim and old minhag of the Sfaradim in many places also was that they fasted 3 days, Bet He and Bet Bahab, Rai Sheni, Chamishi, V'Sheni, after the Chagim of Pesach and Sukkot. The Tosafot in Masechet Kiddushin says Sakva the Shat Rigla, that the worst part in some ways of the year is the regalim, because you have beautifully decorative things for kahal to come out. Women who are dressed up and with makeup and so on and so forth, they come there, and there is potential for michshol af shmirat einayim, and hence the ta'anit of bahav. So, standing Yemei Shovavim is, of course, something important to keep in mind. But nevertheless, says the Kaf HaChaim, we're talking about only Bahav, because not everyone fasts. Not everyone fasts on Bahav. There are Yichidim that fast. And therefore, Meikar Adin, there's no chashash for the Pegam. There's no chashash. The Bet, Hey Bet, Sheni, Chamishi, Sheni. Right? That's the minhag. Again, it's not right now as mostly Ashkenazic minhag, but in generations past, you find this minhag being very much as far as minhag in Turkey, other places as well. So, Tanit Tzibur, a regular Tanit Tzibur, that everybody is fasting, so then the Kohen has to go out. Has to go out, from Mikar Adin, and not just L'chatchila. That's what the Kaf HaChaim says. And that is a little more on this Mishnah Berura. We said we give it to him, and now very interesting thing that this is already in the early Achronim. I believe this is a Maharik and others could have discussed this. You have communities historically that they would donate a lot of money for the Bet Knesset in order that he should read the beginning of the Torah, right? He should be the one that reads the first one in the Torah, right? Starting Parashat Bereshit, right? Starting Parashat Bereshit, and he would have to take the place of the Kohen, right? And he asked the Kohen, and the Kohen says, "B'shum ofen nisht." I'm not giving up my zchut of being the first one. I also want to do the first aliyah. So this guy just paid, a ton of money to the Bet Knesset for the Sorach of Bet Knesset. So how do you get around that? So in Shabbat Parashat Bereshit, he wants to be the first Ole, and the Kohen is now Mohel. So says the Marik, if the minhag was like that, we're not choshesh for the Kohen. We don't care about the Kohen. That's the minhag in this city for generations and generations. So what we do is we keep on doing the minhag because it's an old minhag. This actually is one of those mahariks in Shoresh Tet, I think it is, that becomes very fundamental for the sugya of minhagim. This is the sugya of minhagim in Siman Taf Tzadivav and Taf Samechet. Really starts, and this is one of the major tshuvot that talks about it, is this maharik. He says we don't reckon with the Kohen and what he wants. We just ask him to leave the shul. And the Yisrael that was mitnadev gets the aliyah because for generations and generations this has been the minhag that the Kohen was mochel, and the person that paid for the shul's expenses would get the aliyah, and that's what we're going to keep on doing. Because the minhag was lechvod Torah. This person is paying for expenses of the shiurim, for the Torah itself, and people who at the auction, and they're willing to pay kesef to'afot, tremendous money for the kavod Torah. That's considered a minhag that is legitimate, that's made for kavod Torah. And so once a year, it's not uprooting the takana of Chazal. It's just one time a year. That would be legitimate. Ma'achash minhag kadum hu shenitkan lichvod HaTorah. Yes, he quotes afterwards the Maharik Shoresh Tet and the rest of the Achronim who talk about this, in which the Kaf HaChaim writes, if you have a Kohen, that every Shabbat Bereshit he would get the Aliyat Kohen. Right? We spoke about a very similar case to this. But if you have a Kohen, this specific Kohen gets the Aliyah of Kohen every Shabbat Bereshit. What's the halacha, right? And he gives a little donation. It's not that he gives a lot of money. And now they want to change the minhag in that shul, and they want to just auction it off. It's the first Aliyah of the year. People will pay money for it, and if you have a lot of Kohanim, maybe you could do it better for the shul. So says the Kaf HaChaim, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. Because this Kohen already was zocheh, it's the minhag to give it to him, and that minhag is binding. You should not change the minhag. It's very different than the other topic that the Maharik speaks about, and therefore that would be kept the same way. Bezrat Hashem will continue in the next seif in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.